Seek approval of the agenda, please.
I will make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Gorman, second by Novinsky. Any updates, corrections, omissions, deletions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll seek approval of the minutes from the October 22nd, 2024 board meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve minutes.
We have a motion by Kelly Zebro,
I'll second.
second by Calandra Zebro. Any corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Special presentations. Mr. Doverspike.
Yeah, we have a couple donations to talk about here that we are going to be asking for your approval of. The first two are actually Paul Martinick was able to secure. The first was Crystal Finishing, donated like $1,300 worth of aluminum square stock, is what he tells me it is, for our metals department. And then they're also willing to provide any future things at reduced rate to help with that department. We appreciate that. And then Paul worked with Alstrom to receive a donation of various tools and equipment, and I know Tom and I were present when that came, and they just kept coming out of the truck and coming out of the truck and coming out of the truck. And the tools just kept coming and coming and coming, and then they had a big tool chest in the back of the truck to store it all. You know, Paul sent them a list of requests, and they exceeded the list. And then they're going to be donating a extensive TIG welder in December. They're working on securing that. It's a water-induced, water something TIG welder. That's not my realm to understand. I'm not a shop guy, so I'm just kind of trying to explain what it is. And then we received a general gist. And then we received a donation from the International Brotherhood of $500 per building. So asking for approval of all three of those donations.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by, excuse me, motion by Novinsky.
I'll second it.
All right, second by Kaiser.
That's fantastic.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Who's the International Brotherhood? What?
I think it's
Is
probably
it a
IBEW,
union? It's not a
probably
union.
the electrical workers.
It's out of Stevens Point. They have an office down there.
Oh, okay.
It is, thank you. All right. Any other questions?
Just a suggestion, you know, when we do our link next time, can we put some of these items, make sure that we cover that in the link?
Good
Okay.
idea.
Just to thank all these people
Okay.
and what they've been giving, I think
It'd also
that's.
be nice to photo op if they want
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I mean, it's good for them, it's good for us, I mean, this is.
I know we took donations of or pictures of the Alstrom donation. Because for this one too, because Tom and I were there, and we made sure we weren't in the
This is a
picture.
different one.
Yeah, that would have been, they came on Halloween Day, I think it was, to present it.
That's great.
In costume?
No, they didn't, Tom was in
Tom
costume.
is in costume? Do we want that picture in there, or?
We stepped out of it.
Tom and I made sure we weren't in the picture.
Okay, gotcha.
And we'll send a formal
Yep.
thank you letter.
Yep, and I'll make sure the actually November link is in process of being finalized
It'd
as
be
we
nice to
speak.
invite him for a picture, because that really carries a lot.
Yep.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, special presentation, pupil services.
Over to Mr. Grill.
All right. Good evening, you guys. So this month I'm presenting. I'm your new student services director, so I really just wanted to give you an idea of what I'm doing as a new director to get to know Mosinee and how to move us to the next step. So what I really wanted to cover with you tonight.
Would you like the podium?
Oh, I'm good.
Very good.
I'm a walker, so I'm good.
Just making sure you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So here are the main areas that I really oversee as your student services director. So special education, counselors, nurses. You hear a lot, it used to be called RTI or PBIS. Those were your academic behavior supports. It's now all under the umbrella of equitable multi-level systems of support. So I work with Rob Way on that to really look at that from the district perspective. And then lastly, I'm looking at our school psychology program. Here's the goals. So this is how I like to write goals that I just want to inform you. So I see it as a 4-step process where I identify my goal. What will that look like in practice? What will I see our staff doing with students in the classroom or in special education through their paperwork? Then I talk about what supports do they need to hit that target. And lastly, what moves do I need to make as a leader to make sure that happens. So our goal, as you know, we get IDEA notification every year that says, here's how we're doing as a special education department. We're currently at 81%, which meets requirements. So we're in a good spot. I just want to help increase that because that meet requirements line is at 80%. So we're right there. I want to help us move to that next area. So what this goal specifically, I'm really looking at our procedures as a new person coming in. Are we writing solid IEPs? What's our service delivery model? Are we servicing our kids the best way we can? So that first part really, for two, why I want to see adult behaviors, I'm looking at our IEPs and what I have been doing, which goes a little into step 3. I'm going over with our special ed staff every page of the IEP and comparing it to DPI requirements, saying this is what they say a solid IEP looks like, and saying what's best practice and helping them understand the legalities and how we need to write things. And sometimes the best practice stuff, there's the legal side, and I'll say there's a few Brian rules that this is best practice and this is how I want you to write it. But I'm helping them understand how we need to write it. And then two, stay on that one, sorry. The other part we're looking at, no, you're on literacy, one more back. There we go, thank you. We're also understanding what the least restrictive environment is and what best practice is. So we're gonna be evaluating those things. How do I do that? Like I said, for staff professional development, as of Friday, I met with all of our principals, school psychs. I did an LEA training for them to understand what's their role in the IEP process, how can you support our special ed teachers in knowing that these are the rules. So we spent an hour and a half together going over that, had great discussion of what they can and cannot legally do within that IEP process. And then just creating, I came into and looking at our processes, I created a binder, an electronically and physical one, of all the requirements of special education. So they had a place to go to and a resource rather than relying on their own knowledge or things like that. I wanted to create things they could go back to and learn and check, because there are a lot of rules that surround special education and it's hard to remember all of them. So that was one of the things I wanted to get in place, is a consistent housing system of resources. So the leadership moves I had to make, for me, it's creating those professional development opportunities and following through. It's also having a systemic observation system where I'm going in to see how are we providing services, what does it look like. So as I'm having conversations to say, how do we need to change? I've seen our classrooms, I know what it looks like. And then have a method for collecting data consistently for our students with disabilities. And lastly, looking at the budget to make sure what we're trying to do as a department, does our budget align with that? So the first goal is very heavy just on procedures to get us at a good spot understanding that.
Wait, I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
With you coming in and doing all this, they really had no resources before, like you could say, go to this, booklet, or go to, so this you have created and great.
Yes.
Thank you.
So that was one thing that I came in and created, that I was like, they needed a spot to
Yes,
say,
right.
here's a sample IEP, this is what you should write in the different areas. So those were some things I put into place.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Goal 2, this is where I really focus, next slide, sorry. Our literacy. With Act 20, this was a perfect time to really partner with Rob Wade, Jolene, to say, how are we beefing our literacy within special education? Because on our notification, our students with disabilities scoring advanced or proficient is 8.82% of our students with disabilities. And though on our IDEA notification, the bar to get points in that, we're actually getting all of our points. The state said that's an okay score. For me, I think we can do better as a district. There's a lot of good things happening, so I want that to increase to 12% of our students with disabilities. Now, how do we do that as well? It's really us understanding how are we collecting data on our students, the diagnostic information that you'll hear in the Act 20 presentation that tells us here's the skills our students with disabilities need to work on, and matching those with our interventions and practice to really start seeing that closing the gap. So that's one thing we're going to be looking at as teachers knowing how to interpret the data and then matching that data to their instruction. One of the things that we already did, and part of that, how do we get there? So on November 1st, Kathy Butala and Jolene did a great job of presenting to Gen Ed staff on the here's how you read diagnostics and create a personalized reading plan. But we broke off after that data analysis, and I said, now here's your responsibility as special education and how you document everything in IEP. And the feedback we got was great because special ed's like, we understand our role in this process then. The other thing we're doing a review of the resources we have, because I'll just say because of you having a director, a few different that I've just turned over, a lot of people were like, I need something, and then we bought a lot of different resources. So I'm having them go through and we're looking at the research behind each one and saying, is there a good effect size to this, to kind of help us narrow our resources and say, these are the ones that we know are research-based and are gonna help kids close that gap. And then train them on those resources, because some of them, as I'm learning, we acquired the resource, but we didn't do the PD on the resource within special education. So I want to make sure they know how to use all those things. But that's my work I'm doing in regards to literacy within special education. Next slide, please.
And excuse me, what is LEA?
Oh, sorry, your local educational agent. So
Thank you.
so at an IEP meeting, that's your principal, myself, or school site, being the one that if we're offering services, we're the ones agreeing that we can commit to those resources and make sure this happens.
Thank you.
No problem. And then with our school counselors, school nurses, school psychologists, we're really taking, DPI came out with the school mental health framework and said, these are good components of a healthy, fully functioning student services team, that we think through these different components. So we're taking the time, there is like a action plan guide to this to say, do you have all these components? Are you looking at staff and student wellness? What data are you using at schools? So we're going through this, and I just provide the visuals so you see we'll be going through these steps to say, are we meeting requirements to have a solid student services framework that we're following? So we're gonna be working through that piece, and this year for student services as well, it's gonna be a heavy procedure year to make sure we know who's in charge of what and what is everyone doing. Any questions? Like I said, I just wanted to introduce myself again and then tell you the work that we're doing this year as a team.
Any questions?
Doing good work.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I actually meant lectern, not podium, sorry. It wasn't a matter that you needed to stand on something.
Okay.
That's not what I meant, just to be clear.
Glad you cleared it up.
Well,
I was concerned.
Oh, yeah.
A short thing
I know.
well, that's not a podium, as we know.
I know.
I'm this way.
Anytime I can make fun, Kevin.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yes. Need a little like.
Public forum, anybody sign up? No. Okay. Item number 9, the consent agendas. I'll seek a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Gorman,
I'll second it.
second by Kelly Zebro. Any issues to be pulled out by any committees?
We had a short meeting, just so you know.
5 minutes.
Kevin was,
5 minutes and 8 seconds.
no,
We
I
had an
kid you
hour
not.
one, and one will be coming to the board.
Okay,
Lengthy presentation.
very good. Hearing nothing to be pulled out, I'll seek I'm sorry, we've already had a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10, discussion and possible decision, approval of the monthly voucher list.
I'll make the motion to approve the monthly voucher list.
I'll second.
Motion by Kelly Zebro, second by Paul Novinsky. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Kelly Zebro,
Yes.
Kalanja Zebro,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Hermaning,
Yes?
Hanson, Foreman,
Yes.
Kavinsky.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 11, discussion and possible decision, acceptance of the monthly treasurer's report.
I'll make a motion to accept the monthly treasurer's report.
Second by Kelly, motion by Kelly Zebro,
I'll second it.
second by Donna Kaiser. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Foreman,
Yes.
Hermaning,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Kalanja Zebro,
Yes.
Kaiser,
Yes.
Kavinsky,
Yes.
Kelly Zebro,
Yes.
Stankowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 12, 12A is discussion on an Act 20 presentation.
Yeah, we actually moved the Act 20 presentation to this part of the agenda, not the earlier part of the agenda, because it directly ties into 12B on the agenda, so we thought we'd pair them together and give this group an opportunity to talk to you about what's going on with Act 20. For those of you that don't recall, Act 20 is the new reading, Science of Reading state statute initiative that's going into act this year, or is in the process of. So these three individuals that are spearheading it will give a presentation, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Greg. So I want to start by thanking the board, thanking Greg, thanking our leadership team, teachers. This has been a heavy lift, guys. This is really something in my 30-plus years in education, a big ask, and we have a tremendous team here to get things done, and a lot of moving parts. And we're just really pleased tonight to talk you through our progress with Act 20, what it is, where we're at, and where we're going. And we'll start with the table of contents. We'll talk through the timeline, professional development that we've gone through as leaders and teachers, Act 20 requirements, and moving forward. So just setting the stage a little bit, Act 20, state law, great intent. The spirit of the law is to make sure it's the moral imperative that we have strong readers in for all of our students in the great state of Wisconsin, and then the devil's in the details. It's making that happen, and so it's the right work. Starting with timeline here this evening, Jolyn will talk a little bit through the timeline.
Okay. So we thought it was important. We have really worked hard to keep our instructional programs committee in the loop along the way. There's been a lot happening since this summer with Act 20, and we want to just kind of share. There's a couple slides here of our timeline, so a few highlights. The state announced their screener in July, so it was announced that AimsWeb Plus would be the tool utilized to screen and do the testing. You can kind of see some of the other announcements along the way, an example personal reading plan. That really set the stage for our training to start in August. So we had professional development this summer for our leadership team and for teachers, which we'll go into in a few minutes here. September, there was more training that happened around our personal reading plans. And in September, we also really trained on how to assess using AimsWeb Plus. And that was a big piece. We actually, according to Act 20, don't need to fully implement that until January, but we really were proactive with that, and we took the approach that we're going to learn how to utilize that and have kind of a trial run. And we were successful in that, and went through all the assessment process this fall. So that was a big undertaking for our staff to learn how to do that, and Kathy to kind of train them on all of that. That led us into October, where we're learning more about the measures involved. And then into November, really then diving into personal reading plans. And so our last in-service was on November 1st. That day was extremely valuable. We had our general ed teachers and our special ed teachers in our elementary building participate in this training, and we really dove into what a personal reading plan is, how do we analyze data, and then kind of into small group instruction, how are we putting that into place. You'll see then we're working on creating this form in EduClimber, and we'll kind of touch on this as we go forward. And then you can kind of see January, there's many different boxes there, so we're gonna get there, but there's a lot kind of on the docket, and that's a piece that we'll get into as we go.
So just so that you understand, we are still continuing our teacher training and our professional development, which is probably going to be a 3, maybe even 4-year plan with everything that we need to put into place with the science-based reading instruction. So we just wanted to make sure that we're still on pace for that. In fact, January 20th is our next slot to be able to work with teachers on this plan.
So we thought it would be important, so off of this, basically, like Kathy said, we have the learning that's happening, so that's a part of Act 20, but we also have the requirements around it with the assessing, the diagnostic piece, and the personal reading plans. And so we just want to share what has went into this up to this point, and this also outlines our goals kind of moving forward. This is professional development that's happened with our teachers, so the left side is the learning around science-based literacy, which started this summer. And then we've had, we also have a couple in-service days coming up where we will continue that learning. Like Kathy said, that's like a 3 to 4 year plan where we're learning about best practices around science-based literacy. The right side you can see really is all about the requirements. So it is about the screener, it's about the diagnostic piece, it's about how we're writing these personal reading plans, and you can see the time that has already been invested up to this point in getting these things up and running with our teachers. So a lot of time starting in the summer and going through the school year up to this point around the learning and best practices, but also making sure that we are ready and prepared for upholding the requirements of Act 20.
So parallel training, so we would train the teachers, but as a leadership group, remember, we're learning about this. So we have a leadership, Act 20 leadership team. We've involved middle school, Brad and Sarah, because definitely they'll be involved with students moving up into the middle school, 3rd to 4th grade. We've had Brian as our SPED director, our elementary folks learning together. So starting back in June, we had some trainings. Elementary principals and Brian went to a training, and then our leadership team, we've been meeting every 2 weeks. We'll learn something, and then we'll talk about what's the best way to implement this at that 30,000 foot level. So planning has been a forte of this whole process along the way. So just wanted to mention that there's been the leadership training as well.
And kind of on that, our leadership team will be certified in that science-based literacy practices by the March date, right? So
Right, that's
the
a
requirement
requirement.
is like by July for us to be certified, so we will be, we're on track for that, so that's positive.
Okay, so let's look at moving forward. So in December and January, that will include professional development, administering assessments, including the screener and the diagnostic, and writing personal reading plans, as we follow the guidelines for Act 20. So what we would like to do is just walk you through the process that we're using is the collaborative problem-solving model, and we want to walk you through that so you can understand the process that we're using as we're analyzing all of this data. So in the first step, really what we're doing is we're taking a universal screener and we're looking at the data across the school, across a grade, and within the classroom at the student level, and we're identifying students that could possibly, or that would be below that 25th percentile to look at. Let's take a closer look at them and find out what's going on. So that would move us into step 2, and that's the part where we can give those diagnostic assessments. So step 2 within the Act 20, we are required to give diagnostic assessments in all areas. And so we'll administer those diagnostic assessments at that time, but then we also have an option of a step 3 which is district assessments that we can also administer if we need to drill down even more. If our hypothesis about why the student is struggling, we can't answer that, then we need to drill down some more. So then we'll use that step 3. Then what happens is once we have that all that information, we will work on the personal reading plan. And the personal reading plan, I'm going to show you a little bit of that, a snapshot in this next one. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we'll create a personal reading plan according to their needs and what that student specifically needs, which also includes step 4, which is the plan evaluation. We're continuously progress monitoring within that personal reading plan. And so we'll walk through, I do want to show you a little bit in the next slide of the personal reading plan. Now this process, to take a look at that, diagnostic testing, creating personal reading plan, we have a 15-day window. So it's pretty tight according to Act 20 requirements.
One more comment on
Oh,
that
sure.
last slide. Just looking at that model, not only will we drill in what individual students need, we'll look at, again, that 30,000-foot level, looking at data systemically, how can we do a better job in different areas of that science of reading instruction.
Here is just a snapshot of that personal reading plan. Right now, we are creating this in EduClimber as a form for teachers to be able to fill out. But right now, it's in paper form. And it has 10 different sections. Overall, what it really consists of is a support for the student. So it will outline what are the skills that we need to be working on, what are the targeted small group or interventions that we're going to put into place, what's the progress monitoring that we're going to use to show growth, and then they progress monitor within 10 weeks. After that 10 weeks, we reconvene and we look at how well the student did. What growth did they make? Did they meet the exit criteria? Or do we need to readjust the plan to be able to help that student? So it's pretty extensive and a lot of pieces. One thing that I really like to stress though, it's a collaborative process. So it includes teachers and specialists and parents and everyone collaborating together to do what's best for the student.
Can I add quick that all these components too, so for our students with disabilities, that's where on November 1st, like I said, we broke off. All these same components have to be documented within an IEP if they were to qualify for a personalized reading plan.
So just off of this, we wanted to really try to break down what does this mean for putting this into play with our staff and the students that we're teaching. And so when you look at, we have data here that really is a snapshot from our first screener this fall that we gave. And what you're seeing here is each grade level, the number of students that fell below the 25th percentile. And what we did is we looked at that personal reading plan that you just saw, and we estimated approximate time of what that would take to really analyze data and then complete all those parts of that reading plan to get that up and running and ready to go. Now these numbers are an idea. I anticipate that they'll be pretty similar in January, but it could vary some. But what you're looking at is the number of hours, and then we divided that out by how many classroom teachers we have in that grade level. And you can see just for the personal reading plan part and analyzing data, we are looking at quite a few hours to just get this started, right? This does not include collaboration around developing the targeted small group. So another piece of this is, what are we doing to meet those needs, and what is that going to look like? The lesson planning, the collaboration around that, making sure that we have all of that in place, as well as how are we progress monitoring that. And then the other component is the parent communication, which will be a part of that team approach with the personal reading plans. So when we look at this, moving forward, we have some big ticket items that we are going to be working towards as we in the next coming months here. We have some training to do around diagnostics for our K-3 teachers. We've trained them on the screener, and there's been a lot of time put into that. But we are also going to look to them to help us with a piece of the diagnostic testing, as well as our reading specialists, but that'll be a component. The other part of it is that prior slide, writing those personal reading plans, which was mentioned previously, once that screener's given, we really have a 15-day window to get those written and then put into place. So it's a very tight timeline. So what we are really coming to the board to ask for is we are looking to potentially have an additional in-service day for our elementary staff that would allow them to do this work. And we do feel like there's a great momentum going, but we're at a point where there's much more time needed to execute this and do it well than what we have within our current schedule right now. As we look to the future, and we'll talk calendar later on, we're really being mindful of what this means for in-service days in the future, in the coming year, and looking to kind of align that so that when we are writing the personal reading plans next year, that's going to align with some of our in-service time. So we're really being strategic about what that looks like in the future, but the reality is we do have this coming, this January, and we need to get this up and going. There is a proposal there that kind of outlines what that looks like, and that kind of goes more in depth on what the day would look like, but really looking at this being an at-home, do I have a mouse here? Sorry. There we go. Okay, thank you. So really the Act 20 staff, their whole day would constitute the personal reading plans. EduClimber is where we're housing the form. Staff have been trained on what a personal reading plan is and the components within it, but as far as actually being trained within EduClimber and the pieces and entering it, that hasn't happened yet because we were still finalizing that form in EduClimber. So there has to be training around that, and then the analyzing of data as well as writing the plans and then the progress monitoring. The other pieces we do have laid out here is what that looks like for our early childhood staff, what that looks like for special staff, offering some online components for our elementary students, but not required. And then also some training for paraprofessionals that day as well, to use that time and make it a valuable time for our entire staff. There's a bingo card here, so really looking at that at-home learning day to be something that students can partake in some of those activities with their parents, but not requiring them to be online, which would really provide us with the time to get this up and running and ready to go with the personal reading plans. On top of that is the family engagement, so a little piece on that. We have been keeping our families in the loop along the way. So we have been putting a lot of information into newsletters and weekly updates, just educating them about Act 20. We had in-person learning sessions during our last conferences where we invited families in to learn about this and what this is going to mean for their child moving forward. And then of course, if we are able to move forward with the at-home learning day, there would be communication around what this means for our families. And we feel it's very important to have that communicated to them as early as possible so that they can prepare and be in the loop with that as well. So that is kind of where we're at. Up to this point, a lot of hard work with our staff, and we're just very grateful for the dedication that they've put into this, and our leadership team has been working hard to keep going as lots of new things continue to get thrown at us. But questions?
Megan.
Three questions. My first one, I can't help but I wonder, like I work at TC Everest, right? They implemented a science of reading curriculum 4 years ago. So I'm wondering, like, when I'm looking at where you guys are doing right now, like how are we comparing to districts who did this? Most districts, already changed over years before. Like where are we when we look at us versus them? That's my first question. My second question, which I've sent you guys before, I know when I'm at Everest, it's literally nonstop that someone from Reading Corps is coming into the room to pull a kid, and then they're helping alleviate the burden that this, creates by one-on-one tutoring. They come, take a kid, and they're one-on-one reading with them, and they're helping to service those personalized reading plans in that time, but it's just a free service that's offered by AmeriCorps, and a lot of them are retired reading teachers, and so they can offer 4 years of service. But I would love to see us take that free resource and implement it, because like you said, this is a heavy load, you know, for the teachers and leaders also. My third question is, I can't remember it, it will come back to me though, go ahead, someone else.
I'll just address the first couple points and you guys can jump in. First of all, you know, looking at our district and our reading program, and we have been teaching the science of reading. So I want to make sure that's clear. I would put our district and staff and programming up against any district, and what different districts are approaching this. The law doesn't specify, hey, you have to use this curriculum material, okay? So we've done extensive work the past 3 years aligning our reading program with different curriculum materials. For example, a couple of years ago, you may recall, we came to the Instructional Program Committee with UFly, looking at updating our program. So just to answer a little bit about that with programming, so it is good to though get perspectives from other districts, and that's why we've been partnering not only with CISA 9, just in terms of, hey, what are different districts doing, and DC Everest is part of that. We learn from each other. And then CISA 6, which is outside the area, we collaborate with lots of folks from that part of the state. So it is good to look at other programs, but I want to assure the board that, you know, we have an excellent program, but we can always do better. So that's what we're doing here, so.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
what the third one was. If you go back to that slide where it says how many kids were identified needing a personal reading plan. And if you think, okay, our biggest class is 150, and 50 of those kids, so that's a third of that entire class. So at what point do you say, you know what, if we're missing a third of the class, this doesn't seem to me like they need a personalized reading plan tier 2, tier 1. How do you catch all of them? Because to me, it's not like, you know, we're missing 3 or 4 kids. It's like you're missing a third. Like, at what point does that number get to be so large that like it's no longer like an intervention for a couple of kids? It's a tier 1. Everybody gets it.
And
Take a
I
whack
do
at that,
know,
or I can. Go ahead.
you know, like, I hear what you're saying on that. And we are definitely continuing to look at how we're implementing our tier 1 instruction, and that's a big piece of the Cox campus and what we're learning. And a part of that is the learning and then the implementation, the learning and the implementation. So that's a process, and I feel like we're very much so committed to improving our practices. But the other piece is, this is the first kind of go at this test. I would, and I don't have data from around the state, but I think that what we would see is a very common trend, at least in having conversations with other districts who did implement the screener. We're not alone in what we're seeing here as far as percentages. So I don't know if you've had those conversations and
So we have,
Well, yeah, that's the reason for Act 20, right?
correct,
That's
that there is
state.
there is a need, 100%,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I have a question. So I volunteer in a school, and anyway, we have the same problem from kindergarten to first grade. The number is really high. And this year especially, the number is higher than what it was prior years. And so is that something in kindergarten? I mean, some practices need to be looked at, you know, a little closer. That the number, why is the number so much higher in first grade than it was in kindergarten? So,
I think I understand what you're saying. So in kindergarten, we have this number, and then all of a sudden we jump up. So interesting enough, in grades 1, 2, and 3, the measure that they're using to identify students under the 25th it's called an ORF, it's the oral reading fluency. That is the first time first grade is seeing that. First graders are seeing and being assessed with that. So a lot of times you'll see those numbers jump up because of that, but then come back down. So we're hopeful that as our students are getting used to that and seeing that might change.
I think
So
you also
they could
need to
have
create a couple
piece
years
of
worth
it.
And
of,
just
you need to
remember,
create a couple years of data
This
before you
isn't
get a
year
trend.
after year. Those
This is a
kindergarten
one-day
kids next
trend.
year will have a test in first grade, and then you can start
Yeah,
comparing.
you need 2 or 3 years worth of data, just 3 to 4 probably, to see if you have a trend versus a snapshot.
So, from the instructional programs committee, they have been very transparent with us. That's one of the reasons we have lengthy meetings. They've gone through this process. They warned us that the implementation of this new program was gonna take some time. And I think the three of us will agree, we are not a major advocate of having kids not attend school at certain, but with this 15-day window to do what they need to do, we have to, it's a state mandate thing. We don't have any other opportunity to do that. And that, we talked about all kinds of options, and it was a long, lengthy discussion about how we can help people if they can't find daycare and do stuff like this, and we've gone through, but this 15-day window is the issue that there's no other way to do it. We don't have any in-service time in that.
And I can tell you, a lot of school districts are having this
you
conversation
got it.
right now about this January, and they're definitely having this conversation as they're building next year's calendar
Yes.
about how Act 20 is gonna drive your calendar in some cases going forward, because of the time off needed for the staff to develop the plans.
They've been very transparent about what's been going on, and they may need additional time, and they warned us many times. We had many discussions about it.
Do you have a question?
Yes, the question would be like for new staff coming in, or staff from other school districts. What's gonna be set up for them to see if they're gonna be able to just jump right in next year, if we're having to do this with all our staff right now?
I think it'll be part of our new teacher in-service planning, like a mini Cox Academy, and part of the interview process. Certainly, I would recommend having a question in there, to what extent have you been trained either in your pre-service program, undergrad programs, or, alternative programs? So certainly, we'll be looking at that with new staff members.
Yeah, that'll definitely be important.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, maybe to remind us, as you did,
Sure.
that, this just became law last year, right? That our district has been working on this for
Yes.
probably, we were already working on this in 2020,
Yes. Yes, sir.
right? So it's
Yes.
not something that we're just now working on. We're quantifying it and putting it in parallel with the law itself.
Yes.
So,
And there's been changes to the state. That's been kind of a challenge for us, not to get too much into the weeds, but we'll be planning. Ooh, now we gotta go this way. So that's been interesting.
Any other questions?
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
Just out of sheer curiosity. 20 years ago, a child with dyslexia typically was not diagnosed until the 3rd and 5th grade. It didn't really present itself where you could give a true diagnosis. Has that changed today? Is it getting diagnosed any earlier, or is it,
Can I speak
does it?
to that?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. But I just didn't know if this screener helps to maybe give some of those indicators to say, I think we need a dyslexia test on this child.
So the age range that you're talking about still is the typical age range where they would medically diagnose that. But some of the test results, one of the requirement Act 20 did to help parents just think about and say, is this a potential concern? Could this be signs of dyslexia? We have to, on our district website, as you know, a few years ago, we had to post a dyslexia handbook that gave at-home strategies, here are the warning signs, here are things like that. And that's also part of that communication when we send the personalized reading plan. We have to let parents know that we do have a handbook that goes over, here are things to watch for, and points them to that handbook. So they are saying like, watch for signs, but like, I know a lot of people say at 1st grade, kids flipping letters, backwards, things like that. Well, that's age appropriate at that time, but that handbook does say, just know, though age appropriate, watch it. So, but the age that the medical diagnosis comes is still like that 3rd to 5th grade range.
Okay, and does the handbook, again, out of curiosity, also talk about how it's typically hereditary?
It does. So like the handbook that DPI put out, I think it's very well written. And it's a good 40-page document that goes over, here are things you can try at home, here are things your school can try, here are warning signs, here's the medical behind it that's hereditary, different things like that. So it's a very well put together document,
Okay.
so.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now 12B.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything left for me to say. They covered everything I would have said based on it, and I kind of touched on what I would have only added, which is the fact that this is a point of conversation amongst many school districts right now, especially for next year's calendar and also for this year's calendar. Just the, you know, when you built the calendar, you weren't necessarily understanding, because it really wasn't out yet, the magnitude of work that was gonna go involving this. And I just wanna make sure if we're gonna do this right, the first year, first 2 years, 3 years, let's give the people the time to do it right. And then as people get more familiar with how this works, then hopefully the time to create will lessen, which will then make this
You're
easier
looking for
down
a
the line. So I'm looking for a motion to approve that January 17th is a PD day for elementary school.
Just to interject this, we had extensive discussion about communication with parents.
Yep.
Also finding alternative plans if there are parents that are strapped
Yep.
with daycare. And they've got many options to go over to those people that are in dire need, that
Yep.
they can't find anybody to watch their kids, they weren't planning on this, they can't take off work. So I'll make the motion to pass the January 17th as a professional development day for the elementary school for Act 20.
Second.
We have a motion by Novinsky, second by Stankowski. During agenda setting, we had discussed, I believe it was on this topic, that Diane and I believed that we didn't, not that it was proposed, it was just discussed, that it would not be a student work from home day.
Right.
Is the point. So I'm not sure that, did that come up in your?
That's an option.
Yep.
It's
And-
not mandated.
And one of the things that one of the things we talked about
They
is.
give them the option.
Is a bingo board of more of activity-based, go outside and play, or read a book, or, you know.
But it's an option.
Right, but
You
it's
have
not
to do it.
anything that's graded,
It's
but
more
it's,
of an occupancy thing, not
Yep.
a learning.
yeah.
Understood.
Here's some things to keep your child
We
busy for the
discussed
day.
that.
Effort
Thank you.
brings in, I mean, cause I'll come in and I'll do half a day in second grade and then half a day in kindergarten, and there's just all of us, and the whole point of it is to let the teachers have either professional development or time to catch up with all the new things that they're trying to learn how to do. I mean, that's another option is, you know, pack us up in there.
Any other
So,
questions?
well, as
Well, I
Paul
don't-
discussed, we did discuss this and we've talked about tons of options. I don't know, you know, if it's a possibility to try to present some sort of option for parents if they are really in, you know, really have nowhere, because, you know, older kids will be
Yep.
at school. However, we did note that that was the makeup
For final exams for high school.
for final exams. So maybe some older kids might be available in the household.
And we felt it was best to let the principals, the elementary and middle school who helped out, make those final decisions.
Yeah, I think what we can do, Calander, to that point, when we frame it, is in the messaging, say, if you are in need of daycare assistance, please reach out to us, we have some options available to you, or we can assist in that matter, and then we can present some of those options. Because I know I talked with Jolynn before this even made it to the agenda about, you know, the idea that this very question that you're posing could come up. So we need to have some things prepared ahead of time to help alleviate the concern.
Okay.
I do think it would be just an option to reach out to Kidstown.
That was also discussed. All the daycare facilities. Yeah,
I
the,
think
The only thing
having
is our kids would be
multiple
in there.
options
Yeah.
that we can help
We
parents
went through
find
everything.
what they need. Yes.
I mean, you're very aware of this, you're
Yes.
very aware of it, to see what we need to do. But we left that up to your discretion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 12C, discussion results November 5th, 2024 referendum.
Yeah, I just included the Board of Canvasser results from the referendum with the yes and no votes, the finalized canvas ones. So I just want to, first off, thank those that came in and canvassed. I know that's not necessarily the most exciting job in the world, so we'll start there. But I also want to thank, obviously, the school board for the support, the trust, the effort as we went through this process. And then obviously I want to thank the community for their support of the school district and the projects that we have going forward. And during my report, I'll touch base on exactly how that process is looking, and I'll have Steve interject as needed. But the I can honestly and truthfully say we took the 6th off from referendum talk, but picked it back up on the 7th. The vote was the 5th, we took the 6th. We put the referendum projects on a pause for a day to try to rephrase everything, and then we picked her back up on the 7th, and we've been having meetings since then with various entities, and I can talk more in depth later about the parallel plans, processes you have in place as you move into this step, but just wanted to put these results in front of everybody.
It was nice to see a lot of transparency. I think people gained some trust about being honest with them. Not saying we haven't in the past, but we were spending what needed to be fixed. I heard a lot of compliments of the open house. People really enjoyed that. They saw that, hey, they saw it firsthand.
Yep.
Thank you for your hard work and all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that pulled a lot of work, obviously. I know I want to give a tremendous amount of kudos to Heather Bartnick, who took a lot of ideas of what things should look like in terms of promotional materials or informational materials and made them come alive and look nice.
And the vote yes
You know?
signs were tremendous.
Yep, yep, so I
They
think,
were tremendous.
I think overall,
I
everything
had that
came
idea, it was a
together.
great idea.
Yeah, great job, everybody,
It was.
into the community. Any other discussion? All right, item number 12D, discussion, substitute teachers.
Yeah, I put substitute, Paul asked to put this on the agenda, so what I did is we gathered, I had Sheena pull the fill rates from the last couple of months, from the first day of school, actually. We've been averaging a fill rate of about 84.29%, which is probably pretty normal when you look at different scenarios, and then we looked at what our pay, sub-pay did compared to others in the area, and we're in line with everybody else, so.
Greg, my real concern was with the elementary.
Yep.
And I think that data might not be reflected because the way we handle subs at the middle school and the high school is
Yep.
we just period sub it out. There's no choice. It's gonna be 100% filled.
Yep,
Okay? My concern with the elementary, talking to elementary people is they need real bodies.
yep,
They can't have a teacher. I don't wanna see our classes doubled up.
yep,
That's my big concern. So I'm thinking that maybe we could offer elementary subs a little bit more money to anticipate, to get a body there, especially a certified body. Now, I've gone a step further. I've talked to our elected representatives about trying to appeal Act 2, which doesn't allow you to double dip in the retirement
yep.
system. And it could help bus drivers.
Yep,
It could
yep.
help aides, it could help everything, because right now, a lot of people that have retired from working in schools really can't go back in schools and work. And it's causing we're strapped. And so I'm hoping we can solve that, and I'm hoping the elementary, it needs bodies. There was one time they couldn't find anybody. There were 3 or 4 classrooms that were double, 45 kids with one teacher.
Yeah.
And so my point is maybe an incentive, because we can always period sub the middle school, high school, which I'm not saying is the best thing. Basically a teacher in their prep period, they go and take that class. And at least we have a certified teacher from the district that knows what's going on. We pay them extra. But at the elementary, it kind of seems to be a little bit of a strap. Am I correct here, ladies?
If we aren't able to find a sub, then that really is kind of we offer it to those individuals who might not be teaching at the time, but a lot of times they will double up and that will.
And I know it doesn't happen a super lot, but to me, if it's happening, 45 kids shouldn't be in a classroom. Even if it is one teacher, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, so. My point is, and I'm gonna make a recommendation that we increase the pay. I'll make a motion that we.
well, it's not an actionable
Okay.
item.
No action item.
Okay, gotcha,
It's discussion
Gotta
only.
bring it
Okay.
back.
We couldn't even if we wanted to.
gotcha, I understand.
It hasn't been agendized.
It's something to maybe think, our administration to think about. And with your feedback, I think to have those elementary subs in the building physically is a requirement. That's the only thing I wanted to say.
And also, what you could do at Everest, if I go over a certain amount of days, I get a bonus. If I go over 10 more days, I get another bonus. If I go over, I mean, it's very small, and it doesn't count if you're doing a long-term assignment, but, I mean, it does.
We actually looked
But
at that,
it
we've
is a
done
nice
that,
We
and
used to do
actually,
that.
we were
We did that.
higher than what Everest was doing
Right.
at the time, what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That was all looked at, we've increased it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is
I'm really
everything.
focused in on the
Yeah.
elementary.
Right.
That we have a physical body, a certified body there that can actually go in and do the best job
I'm
with
not
those
sure if
25 kids.
that's necessarily attainable in the near future, because if you look at the economic data for even our county, elementary teachers, there's just a shortage as a teacher. So if you're having a teacher shortage in that particular area, it's going to be hard to have a substitute. And then you're having this bidding war, and we can't always
I understand.
compete with the surrounding districts.
Right, I mean, and that's really part of the issue as well. There's a limited quantity in the pool. And so that's what happened during, you know, the year before and then the year after COVID. We ran into this whole bidding war thing.
Yes.
But, okay.
Okay.
Thank you for the
Thank you for
data.
listening.
Thank you for the data. Item 12E, discussion and possible decision, Board of Education norms.
Yeah, there was a conversation, the board wanted to establish some norms at one point, so I did what every person does nowadays. I went out and Googled Board of Education norms to find some from other districts, and pulled the ones that I thought sounded well, and didn't take the ones that I didn't think sounded well. So just tried to pick the ones that I thought were relevant, and obviously a lot of them overlap. When you look at everybody, it's the same thing, just phrased differently. So I put together this. By no means does this have to be the Board of Education norms, nor does it have to be the board wants to adopt norms, nor does it have to look like this. I just know there was the request to put together some Board of Education norms, so I did the request, and now I'm turning it over to the board to decide how you want to proceed, if at all.
Well, I think it's important, that was one of my, and I think what you did here, Greg, is great. At one time I put something together, and I think Diane, you were with me, we had talked possibly even just making like, to me, this is overwhelming. You know what I mean? And like you said, a lot of it is repetitive. It's like avoid hidden agendas, you know, and then just being courtesy, you know, to each other. And so if we could do, and I don't know, this is where I need assistance, like get a group and maybe do, maybe even 10 or 12, and just have a poster. So when you walk in the room, when somebody gets out of hand, you look at the norms and you say, you know, you're being disrespectful. Or just so that there is something there
And I think
for each board member to know, this is what is expected of you.
And I think, to your point, Kelly, I think the first page is more just mode of operational type norms that don't really need to be posted. It's more of how the board wants to operate. I think the part that would post would be the board meeting norms itself.
Right, and I even like to arrive at the meetings on time.
Yeah.
And prepared, I like that one.
Don't we have a board norm policy?
It's
Yeah.
kind of vague. I mean, it's in the Neola one. It's not, it's longer than this, I will tell
Right.
you that.
Great, and what
I
we're
remember
looking
reading
at,
it.
Paul,
Yeah.
is just kinda, anyway.
I mean, this
what
is
I'm-
good stuff. It's
What
it's
I
nice
have
for
in mind.
people to at least read it.
Yes.
I think it'd be nice to have something, especially for new board members,
Yes.
because you are overwhelmed, or, you know, I know even at that last, WASB meeting, we were talking about, you know, or they were suggesting having mentors for new members,
Yes.
or something
Yes.
like that too, might be
I,
something to think about,
what I've always done with new board members is have an onboarding
yeah.
with the board president and myself, where we cover, I mean, everything from, you know, here are the 15 most used acronyms in education, to how does a board packet look like, where do you find this, how do you get on email, what does open records request look like, what does a quorum look like, you know, be careful putting this here because it could become an open record, answer everything with your email, the chain of command, you know, the board meeting norms, you know, these kind of things, like, that is a conversation that I would recommend that we have with new board members and the board president and myself, and just go over
It's almost good to have a package.
something similar to this, and I had something I had created that just kind of outlines, like, here's the expectations, or what, I don't want to say expectations, that's the wrong word. Here's kind of what to expect when you become a board member, and here's where your resources are you can go to for help, and here's kind of how the protocol works, so you don't just come in blind.
And Greg, that is great, but it is nice to have like you even do for the new teachers, a mentor after you
Yep,
leave a
no,
meeting.
100%,
What was,
yeah.
I didn't quite,
Well, even
you know,
Robert's rules.
yes,
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
It's not always
I
the
mean-
easiest to
And you don't
understand.
remember everything you're.
Yeah, no,
at
understood.
that meeting, so if even you say, hey, you know, Paul, will
Yep.
you mentor this new member? They got any questions, you walk out with them, ask them if they have any.
Yep,
You
no,
know.
100%, I'm not against having a mentor. I think the first step of it needs to be a meeting with the
Oh,
board
that,
president and
that I
myself.
would not, yes,
to
definitely do.
Talk
yes,
about
that's
how,
the way.
board protocol for this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, you're walking in with your eyes, yeah.
Yeah, and then as it is, you can have, and one of the things that, you know, as I transitioned to having, I had a pretty stable board, and then I transitioned to having some changeover, that you have to remind yourself too, as the board president or as myself, is sometimes if you get people around the table that have been around the table for a long time, you kind of talk in acronyms and you kind of talk in
Yeah.
language and everybody understands what you're saying, and then you have to remind yourself, oh, I got some new people around the
That's a
table.
different perspective.
Yeah, we need to slow down and explain some of this, like Fund 80, Fund 10, Fund 39, like we throw all these things out and everybody knows, but a new person's not gonna have an idea of what we're talking about. So it's just slowing it down and explaining that is just kind of a thing you also need to remember.
I'll make the motion that we accept the Board of Education rules.
As presented there,
Yep.
okay? We do have a motion by Paul to accept the Board of Education norms as presented in the document put together by the superintendent. Is there a second?
And I don't have a problem if there's a desire to downsize some more.
I definitely would,
I mean, I'm not trying to circumvent what Paul already put on the motion, I just,
No,
I noticed there was an awkward pregnant
Well,
pause.
I was just giving the board members, and I know Kelly had already mentioned an abbreviated version of this as
yes.
her
definitely,
ideal.
yeah.
I think all those things are good. There's nothing on that list that isn't something that's boards of education shouldn't be doing.
I don't think that's a point we're arguing, Paul. I think
Nope, I
the
know.
point is that if you make it condensed and smaller, I think it's more easy to,
I think if you make it smaller, sometimes you miss things.
And maybe I'm sorry,
But
Kevin.
it shouldn't it be more philosophical than procedural?
yes.
Could be.
Yes.
My personal opinion is that this is more procedural
Yes.
and process rather than
Yes.
philosophical.
Right,
Similar to the strategic plan, I mean, we're covering 4 broad themes in our strategic plan, or a company, core values might have somewhere between 3 and 10, something like that. I'm, it's my perspective,
mine.
so Kelly, are you, hearing that, not receiving a second?
I will second that motion, cause you know what, I kinda like what is here.
Okay,
And to the point, I'll throw another option out at you. If the board says these are good, but you want to post fewer, you can pull out a handful to post. And this becomes more of like a norms of procedural type things. I don't know. I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff out.
So historically,
Open spaghetti
what we had
falls.
talked about, probably
Yeah, 8 years.
5 to 8 years ago, was posting more about our mission and vision, with students being the first priority, as it should be, on the wall. And something very short and brief, so nothing like this, but just, again, a mission statement, value statement, or core values around the room, what have you.
But isn't that our mission statement? I mean, you just want people to know it. You want
Well, for us board members,
Yeah.
that's what we should always be voting with the best interest
Yeah,
in mind,
right.
which is the students in mind first.
But these are actions.
But
These are-
additionally, I also just want to comment and say that I think it's a great starting point. We can revise on an annual or biannual basis because it could be a living and breathing document as the board changes as well. But additionally, on the second page, second to last bullet, it talks about, as Kelly stated, being respectful of each other's time, being brief and to the point. But to expand upon that, we have to remember that we are a board of 9, and more often than not, some may try to take the floor while others sit quietly. So I think as a president, we should try to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to speak, or we should encourage it, especially of the new board members that may be a bit more timid in the situation. But I think that that's something that we should all be cognizant of, is making sure that we're allowing everybody opportunity to jump in and speak as well.
Right, so, with that being said, where are we?
I would also
we have a
like.
motion and
Yeah.
second.
I know that, but I wanna go, yeah. What,
Before you, would you mind, Calandra?
I would like to also add, I don't know if this maybe wouldn't really be part of the motion, but that this would be revisited yearly as new board members come on.
I think this could very easily become a standing board agenda item as part of our list. Or if the board wanted to have similar to what we had last time with a retreat, this could be an agenda item on their retreat, would be to
On this
review
stuff, the
this.
retreat we're talking about.
Yeah, and then you have a retreat, and then that part of it is you review this document. So I do agree with you, Calandra, I think it's something that can be.
The problem with not having it in a document, when you write it down, it's history, it's rules. If you talk about it, people can circumvent it.
Yeah, I think if you adopt something, we can revisit it on an annual basis.
I mean, this is one of those issues that when you vote against it,
right,
which I intend to, it might lead a person to believe that you don't think there should be board norms, or that there might even be one item on here that you disagree with. But I'm looking at just the 17 items that are visible on this one page.
yeah,
7 of them refer to respect. With all due respect, I understand you're trying to compile a list that was more than a starting point for this board.
Yeah.
Without necessarily intending for this to have been something that the board would adopt
Yeah.
as presented or as given to us. Which goes along the lines of what Kelly mentioned about an abbreviated version of something to this effect. If this motion were to go down to defeat, it would be my hope that, Kelly, you would be willing to work on an abbreviated version, but this might pass.
You and Kelly could do it.
I'm not unwilling to do that, I'm just saying that
right. I could even with Shana just.
I understand where you're coming from.
that's all I was really
I
saying.
understand where you're coming from.
And perhaps, in the absence of us approving this, you might otherwise, and Calandra might otherwise believe that the board would take no action. And that isn't desirable either.
No, I understand.
So,
I see where you're coming from, but sometimes it is good to be specific. You know, yes, they all do refer to being respectful, but sometimes it's good to clarify what that means.
This is a starting point.
sure.
It is, it's a starting point.
You can always refine.
So we have a motion, we have a second, any other discussion?
Well, I guess, Greg, I don't know, and I don't know if you know, who should be doing this. I know you don't wanna take the time and throw them back.
It's not his job.
Right,
We're the
that's what I
board.
mean.
Right, I
I know,
think-
he took
So
the
we can
time to
conduct
do
business.
this, that's what I'm saying.
Right, I mean, the time is not the factor, Kelly. I have no problem going back through this and condensing it and color coding it based off thematic type things.
No,
I don't.
The idea of it, no, but I mean, I'm saying, like, trying to find a way to make this easier.
Right,
It'd be a horrible use of your
But,
responsibilities and time.
but the point is that they're your norms.
right.
Right.
They're not my norms.
Exactly. And what you're saying is when you say they're your norms, they're every single one of these
Yeah.
board members'
Correct.
norms.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is that every single one of you should have a say on what you feel is important to our norms and what you don't.
Well,
And
I
2
like
have
Kelly,
already
yeah.
indicated that they
But
feel
Kelly, you're really
this.
good at this, and you've been asking this for a while. We'll start with you.
Yeah, as far as what, I think, like I said, we could have, at the very most, I would do 10, just put them in there.
Well, why don't we vote,
Yep.
Yeah.
and we'll see where the vote
Okay,
goes.
but then I'm gonna say one more thing, and you might not like it. As long as we got this going, there's a possibility of voting for it, at least we have it.
Well,
You see
that's-
what I'm saying?
That's what Paul and Calandra, I
I
think,
know,
were at
that's
least
what
in
I'm
part
saying.
trying to
If we
do.
start the process, we start the process.
Right,
It
right,
can
that's
be
what I'm saying to
revisited.
you now.
Nobody's feelings are gonna get hurt.
My-
You vote the way you wanna vote.
No,
That's
I
one of the
know,
norms.
but I just want this board to know, I want this board to know if we start, like you said, we start, we have something. Right now, we have nothing.
Well, we have a
That's my
policy,
point.
but a lot of people don't even know what the policy is. It's there, the policy
It
is
is
out
there,
there.
it is there, I looked at it, but yeah,
That's very wordy.
yeah, it is, it's kind of like this.
I think this is very specific.
it's clear.
Oh, it's wordy.
Jessica, what were you gonna add?
I was just gonna
I'm
say,
done with
Paul
this
could
then.
make a friendly amendment and, say that this is a starting point and that it can be modified with Kelly at the helm of that, since she's all about the board members.
Thank you for that, but I'm gonna stay with my motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
You got
carries.
some at least.
Thank you, and
Thank
thank you
you.
for your
Now, do we
assistance.
wanna get
Yes,
people
thank you.
together to revise it?
No,
No,
In future meetings.
yes.
I think the board was pretty clear how they were voting on that. All right.
So,
Next, we have three, Kevin's pushing buttons
Go
to get
ahead, I'm
to it.
trying to find my agenda.
There's three field trips, overnight trips, I'm sorry, that need approval as per the policy. The first one is the band is going to the WCBA to perform. Softball is taking a trip to Florida, and then Trees for Tomorrow is doing an overnight as well. So we are recommending approval of all three of those.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Gorman, second by Novinsky. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 12G. I think everybody just wanted to get to this topic, right?
Thanks. Here's what I will tell you on this. This is obviously
discussion only.
Yes, this is discussion only. There's certain, one of the things okay, so let's take you back to the process here. There was conversations we had administratively around what a calendar would look like as a starting point for conversation. And we always kind of had in the back of our mind, if the referendum passed, we were probably going to be coming to the board asking for an early start date waiver to create the longer construction schedule that second summer, to elongate that schedule, because it's a very tight schedule when you look at the renovations you need to do in that time frame, and then have the building ready and operational for the first day of school. So what I'm asking for tonight, and so I'll tell you, to be a guy that, it's like the coaching thing, you can't look forward to the next round until you win the round you're at. I didn't want to put a lot of time into developing a referendum calendar until the referendum passed.
You're looking for a sense of the board
So
tonight.
what I'm looking for tonight from the board is, where do you want this first day of school to be? Because that is going to impact the resolution that needs to be written for next month's approval. So I can send that into DPI for an exemption to start school prior to September 1st.
If the
That's
board
the
wants that.
biggest, yes, if the board wants that. That's the biggest thing I need tonight, is an idea of what that date is I need to put in that resolution so we can get that approved next month and get this done. Some of the other stuff in here is open for debate. I think the biggest thing you have to understand, though, is if you move much inside of that, that's gonna impact the end date. All right? So,
Right.
that's the point.
Could you go back to September, please? Thank you. Alternatively, if we don't begin before Labor
Yep.
Day, it'll be September 2nd, correct?
Correct.
First day of student contact,
Most likely, yes.
most likely, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yep, which will then kick our construction back a week or two, which when you're looking at a construction schedule, they start looking at it being compressed. Sometimes they start arguing. I'm not saying that's how they're gonna bid it, but sometimes they start saying compressed. I might have to look at overtime, because I might have to whatever, and if it's overtime, they're not gonna eat the overtime out of their profit. They're gonna pass that on to us. Yeah.
Okay, some clarification.
Yep.
So, and I think Steve maybe can help.
Yep.
So this is for the calendar coming up.
Yep.
When are they going to start working on the
The
construction?
plan is, that we're in the process of design right now.
Yeah,
So we're hoping to have it ready to start showing more detail on what the boxes are here in the next month. As Steve Jamrose is working on that right now. And then on top of that, we're also working on, and then that'll go to bid. They'll have to then make the construction bid documents where it gets more finite in detail. And we're hoping to get that bid in early spring with the idea of breaking ground and starting excavating footings and all that right after
For
school.
the new edition.
For the new edition, once school is out.
This
And then
summer.
next school year, yes, this
Okay.
school year.
This
And then
school
the,
year.
The goal would be to have the new addition encapsulated by the snow flies a year from now, and they would do the new addition during the school year next year, and then as soon as we can, we're gonna turn the building over to them at the end of next school year to start
So,
doing the remodel.
Similar to what you did at the middle school.
It would be, yeah, so the target date would be basically August 2026.
Yeah, okay,
So we gotta be ready to go with, for all intents and purposes,
okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
And so, what, okay, looking at the color, when, according to this calendar, when would be the official first day of school, the 19th?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you
Official last
discovered
day
rather
is May
quickly with your
22nd.
email that I've negotiated a long time. For some reason, the calendar is people's personal thing. They go nuts over the calendar. They'll sacrifice pay for
The
calendar.
board too, by the way.
Oh, I know, I've been here, I watched the video. So you found out in Mosinee, for some reason, that calendar is a hot topic.
It is everywhere.
And everybody will give you their 2 cents. They will. So,
Might cost us a quarter.
it might cost more.
Yeah.
Another question, the teachers that do summer school, how would summer school look then this year? I mean, they aren't going to have very much time between the second session and,
Greg is our person.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. No,
Okay.
you can ask the question, just.
Yeah,
ask it
the
of
way
Greg.
summer school would
Just ask
operate.
it of Greg, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. The way
all right.
summer
It's
school would
okay.
operate
It's okay.
is that summer school we would obviously fit it in the same, we're looking at doing the same 5 weeks. And we would play with that, and I'll be the first to tell you, next summer, this coming summer will be condensed. But the
Okay.
following summer is gonna be widened because you're gonna be out of school earlier. Like now we're going into what, June 2nd, I don't even know what the last day is this year. You know, 2 weeks after 2 weeks after Memorial Day-ish. Now we're done with Memorial Day, so that, you know, what we're losing on the front end, we're gaining on the back end. Is kind of what I would say. And at summer school, we already have had conversations I don't think the programming is gonna look different, but some of the locational stuff might have to look different as we start losing areas for the construction in the back. You know, there's gonna be some things that, we're having conversations about how that stuff will work.
Paul?
I am comfortable with this model. I mean, we might have to be tweaked a little bit
Yep.
depending what comes back. I don't have an issue with it. I just think that we have to communicate to people to say, look, we have a major construction. This isn't minor, this is major, that we're gonna need flexibility the next 2 years
Yeah.
from everybody.
Yeah, and this early schedule is, my anticipation is a 1-year deal.
Okay.
Right.
Kelly?
Right, and that's what because I've had some people ask me about it. It's a 1-year deal, that's what I said. I don't know, Greg, with these flex days, because the way it's looking is that the teachers don't have the month of August at all.
Yeah, so let me explain it to you.
Yes,
So,
please do.
the 6th of August is kind of it's a professional development day that is, we're not sure if we're gonna keep it there or not.
Okay.
There's more conversation that needs to be had amongst all entities on that. The 12th, 13th, and 14th would be our full-fledged in-person in-service, 3-day in-service.
Much like we normally do.
Right. The flex days in the green are basically, the way I've always operated those, it's a day and a half is how it's scheduled, where the teachers have to put in like half-day blocks where they get their room ready. They don't have to work all of those days. They only have to work a day and a half, 12 hours of those days, whenever,
Yeah.
to get their classrooms
They're-
ready.
yeah, they
So-
just pick and choose.
Right, right. So when that 12th, 13th, and 14th comes, basically, there might not be a lot of time to get classrooms ready because we're gonna have meetings and other things going on.
Is your feeling with this, some teachers need more time to get their classroom ready,
Right.
some don't? Could they do their professional development points, like if they wanna go to a conference
Right.
and stuff like that? If they don't wanna sit a day and a half in their classroom, it's already done, cause some teachers,
Right.
they do it rather quickly, they get it figured, I mean, I'm just saying. it might
Yeah, we
be-
don't have the professional development points anymore.
I know, but they might wanna take that day and say, I'm gonna go to the Wired conference at the
Right.
tech, it's a great thing, it's a technology
Yeah.
conference.
Yep. And actually, that's what the 6th is. We had conversations about, do we
That
wanna
Wired
send the whole
conference
staff
is
to the
awesome.
Wired, or if we wanna do it. I'm open
Okay,
to those conversations. It's just,
I understand.
it's to add everything to 190. And it's the idea of giving them the flexibility to get their classrooms ready on their schedule. in a lot of
And
cases.
just a point of information,
Yeah,
there are only two other school districts that have 190 days of teacher that's Rapids and Marshfield. And then the rest, some only have 184. So I'm just bringing that up.
So Greg, if I'm hearing you right,
uh-huh,
and I get what Paul's saying, that third week is always when you had in-service, the 12th, the 13th.
Well, it's the week before we start school.
Right,
yep.
yeah. So, I'm trying to look at this, so you are putting a day in the 6th is that first week in August.
It doesn't have
It
to
doesn't
be
have to be,
that,
I think that's where you get kind of what I'm saying, if you could possibly,
that is up for conversation.
okay. And I
That,
can explain.
like I said, I wanna go back to the beginning. This calendar, we put together in a relatively short amount of time, having a conversation administratively about how did November 1st go? Do we wanna continue to go to the common PD day up at Merrill or not? If not, do we wanna look at something else? Oh, maybe we wanna work with Wausau and DC Everest more. Oh, we already kinda worked with them at the Wired Conference. Maybe we should consider that. Well, let's put this day in as a placeholder. I wanna go back and reiterate though, the conversation still is, I need the parameters around the first day of school. The rest of it we can play around with, but I need that done so we can pass a resolution next month.
Mrs. Maple.
I feel this is fine. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Maple.
Thank you for allowing me to talk. Okay, so here are my comments. I absolutely support this, Greg, and so, with a few things. So like we were just talking about, going back to the board norms, everything should be about the students first. And listening to the public, and the public overwhelmingly spoke when they approved the referendum by 2,000 votes. So they say that they support this and they want us to move forward. So to be successful and to be, to your point, Greg, good stewards of their taxpayer dollars and ensuring that there's flexibility in that construction calendar, we need to afford this flexibility for that. While it may upset personal calendars, we're not gonna be able to make everybody happy, but we need to put this referendum and the construction first. Additionally, we also heard about the importance of Act 20, and we need to make sure that we also have that time on the calendar, if needed, built in. So I think with all of those, and just saying though, that now this is the flexibility to make sure with an expanded year that we can meet all of these objectives and moving parts, putting the children first.
You put January up here? So as you can see, there's 2 days that we have as PD days in January, Jessica. The one day is what the commonly referred to as Records Day. That's the day you clean up your semester records, get ready for the next semester. Everybody has the day off after the end of a semester, all right? Then this second day would be to replicate exactly what you approved 15 minutes ago, okay? And then if you go up on the calendar, Christie, October 24th is a PD day that would reflect kind of when that testing window. Now, what I say by that is this might not be the exact date, but we know we need a day in October, and we know we're gonna need an extra day in January. That's why those are reflected in there right now as PD days, to try to anticipate what that may look like.
Absolutely, absolutely.
In what month will we be approving the final calendar?
I mean, in a perfect world, I'm gonna bring everything back to you in December, and you'll approve the whole thing next month. If you
Next month.
wanna get and look at finite dates, then at least I wanna pass a resolution to say we're starting school the 19th, or
And
whatever.
I know
date.
that that's the first priority.
Yep,
Right.
I'm not opposed to doing the whole thing
Yep.
next month. I brought it up I asked the question only because, for example, the 24th, you and your team will have already come to an agreement that you will recommend to the board
yeah,
which day
Yep.
in each particular month.
yeah. Administratively, we've talked about
Yes, I know.
the basic framework of this. We've just said, some of these days are placeholders. We wanna get, go back, have the principals talk to their building leads teams about some of these finite days inside of the calendar itself.
Keep in mind, it could be a year where you get a lot of snow days too.
Yep.
You
Yep.
just don't know.
It's supposed to be this
Megan?
summer, winter.
Anything?
I agree. I think if Greg and Steve and Danny and the, you know, the construction company feels that they will do the best job with the community money by doing it this way, I think it's up to us that we, you know, it might be uncomfortable for a year, but it's a forever investment. And it's a lot of money, and we need to make sure that it's done right and that they're not cutting corners because they're working overtime, and then who's gonna pay for the overtime? We are. We have to do the best that we can to make sure that it's done properly. And I think this calendar ensures that.
During agenda setting, there was a discussion that some families may already have their summer plans in place, which may include late August of next year for vacations. And that the school district we will have to be the ones to assist those families in making sure that their children are able to get caught up after that first week of missing school. Donna, anything additional?
Well, and to that point, that happens all the time.
Of course. Yeah.
And so that's not something that's new or, I mean,
Yep.
parents today don't always have flexibility in their vacation time. so.
Philander or Diane?
No, I'm
Anything?
fine with the calendar.
Oh, I was gonna ask about, spring break. You mentioned that was over Easter.
Yep.
Is that, does that fall in line with a lot of the surrounding districts, or do you know?
Curiosity. I was supposed to have a meeting yesterday with Everest and Wausau, but I did get, Wausau isn't finalized, so I don't know if I publicly wanna tell you when their spring break is,
Yeah.
but I will unpublicly tell you.
We are being recorded, so
Okay.
maybe not.
They're not looking at the same week we are. They might be looking at a week earlier than us. But if you look at that, then you go to school have a week off, and then you come back for 3 or 4 days, and then you take off for Easter. That seems kind of disjointed.
For our district.
Correct.
Yes.
Leave it at that.
Huh?
We'll leave it at that. So, this was a discussion-only topic.
Yep.
I think you have a sense of the board.
Yep.
You comfortable with that, Greg?
Yep, perfect.
Wonderful,
I
thank
can
you.
start making the resolution.
Thank you for your comments, everybody. Item 12H, Board Policy Revision, first reading, Policy 5460, graduation requirements.
Yeah, the reason that this is a policy item is that Tom has been working with a group of his staff for quite a while, most of this year on and off. And they actually were part of those discussions way back when you were developing your SIP, and when did we do that? August, July, something like that, June? I remember listening to that conversation about wanting to change graduation requirements and increasing our graduation requirements. So Tom actually did this presentation and his group to the instructional committee and kind of got their comments, concerns, discussions out of the way a month ago, and then he's bringing it back to you. So the reason that this approval is being asked as a policy is graduation requirements are in a policy. So that's why I attached his presentation to the agenda, so you can see the rationale behind it, along with the policy, with the proposed change, which really is just a change in the number of credits at the top from 22 to 23.5, and then changing the elective credits from 6 to 7.5 for classes 2028 and beyond. I'm looking, I might have to change the elective credits from 6.5 to 7.5, yeah, on that first, at the bottom one on H. But we're just asking for approval tonight. Yeah, go down, the elective credits, go up, Chrissy, to H. Tom, that's 6.5, I only changed the one in parentheses for the class of 2028, would that go to 8?
No,
9? What would that be?
it would still be,
Because that class of 2028 takes in that personal literacy requirement.
yeah, that just eats up an elective though.
Okay, so yeah, so that would be,
It stays at 7.5.
okay, for the class, beyond class of 20, for everybody.
Yep.
Okay. So we're asking for approval of this policy to change graduation requirements. And in it, there's a lot of conversations that will be had related to how to properly put in some form of community service type component or volunteering component with the graduation requirement, whether that be part of a employability type, soft skills type class, that we might have the students take part in, or whether that be part of their senior exit process or whatever. So that's also a conversation that's being had as well. But we just want to start getting the requirements changed so we can start phasing those in over time and start getting that information out to families. Because it would be a phased approach. So if you go to Tom's presentation, the phasing.
We started with our current freshmen.
Yes.
So the requirements would be applicable to our current freshmen as well as all incoming students from that point. We feel that the current freshmen, the way that scheduling works, they're already taking a credit load that puts them at a pace beyond that requirement, so they're not set back. And then all others would continue to follow that track moving forward.
Any questions, board? No? All right. Seeking a motion to approve the first reading of policy 5460, graduation requirement changes.
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion by Donna Kaiser,
I'll second.
second by Calandra Zebro. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 13, admin reports.
Yeah, I just want to touch base on a couple things that are in my report. We already talked a little bit about the design process of the referendum, but I want you to understand there's actually 3 paths that we're kind of working on with the referendum. Well, it's not the referendum anymore. There's 3 paths we're working on with the project. You have the design portion of the project, which Steve is working on with Steve Jamrose, and once we get the boxes further defined, then we'll give opportunities for staff that are in those affected areas to provide input on aspects, what their spaces could look like, would look like, those kind of things. But then we're also playing a role with Findorf around construction schedule, around drawdown schedules, around what that's gonna look like, what the site's gonna look like, so we can start making some site plan conversations for as early as June and into next school year, what those might have to look like. So that's kind of conversation we're having. And then the third path we're having is Rod and I are engaged with Baird around when are we gonna sell the bonds, what that looks like, to go through the, I think we're going with Moody's to go through the rating process, disclosure council, bond council, all of that gathering of data. We're kind of going on that path as well. So we're kind of running 3 different paths right now. So I will tell you the work is almost busier now than what it was during the referendum because there's just a lot more going on in different areas. But it's been great because, I don't have to be involved in all of it. So for me, it's been really nice because, Steve has taken his aspect, and admin, we're having a lot of good conversation on schedule, and I've been able to lean a lot on Rod with the bond stuff. So yeah.
Is the bond discussion with the Baird people next month
Yes.
going to be with the whole board or only finance?
What I was going to do, and we can change it, is I was going to have Kevin Mullen, to go into a deeper conversation with the finance committee,
Okay.
more on the finite details, and then do a briefer conversation with the full board around what the financing plan is gonna look like.
That's the most exciting part.
Well, you're a good thing you're gonna be in that one. But some conversations that we're having, because one of the things that you get into with this, and Kevin, you probably know more or as much as I do on this, that we want to keep that first one of the sales below 15 million, so we get
Yep.
below the small bond issuance requirements, because that changes arbitrage and all these other factors. So if we can keep that, so kind of the conversations that Rod and I have had recently, and that's gonna be based on when we get the drawdown schedule, which is, the construction company will tell us when they need money from us, is going to be when are we gonna sell, and how much are we gonna sell in each one, because we're gonna do 2 different bond sales. One in 2025, one in 2026. So do you do a 15 and a 5, roughly 15 and a 5, we'll keep numbers round, or do you go a 10 and a 10, or a 9 and 11, or how that works? That's conversations.
Is the board all right with the recommendation about finance versus the broader board presentation? Or does the whole board, the majority of the board desire the full in-depth discussion about the bonding and the rating and all that stuff?
Personally, being that it was a full board that decided on the referendum,
No,
True.
That's fine.
and it is recorded,
Yes?
I think it'd be better to have it in the full board discussion.
Okay.
Just my
I'm not
two
opposed to
cents.
that at all.
I'm not
That's
either.
why I brought it up, actually.
Right,
Well, and then the public has the opportunity to
Sure.
also view that as well, just to
Okay.
be better
Okay,
informed.
I can email Kevin Moan
Excellent.
tomorrow.
We have another short board meeting in finance next month.
Let's add that in.
You got rid of.
5:45. 5:45 is it?
Anything else from your report?
No, well, the only other thing I was gonna tell you is, we are working on board docs. Our plan, Shane and I have been working on that implementation. Our plan is, we probably could go live with it next month, but we thought we'd just wait till 2025 because of how the board schedule lays out on the website, where it's 2024 dates, 2025 dates. That way the 2025 stuff will just go all to the new system. That's all I
Any of
have.
the other administrators have any pullout? I want to make sure that, I think the work done by Steve in prepping for the referendum and by Rod in the finance side, and now working with some of the townships in the city on communicating with property tax bills going out soon. There's a lot of heavy lifting work to go there as well. So make sure if you could communicate that to them as
Yep.
well. Thank you. WASB report. Kelly.
That is me. We have our, in January, Shayna has contacted everyone who's going to go down to Milwaukee to the workshops. We should all have the emails, who's going, sign up for your pre-convention. And we do have in November, if I can find it here quick, it's a web. And let me just look, if I can find it quick. Happen, I guess. There is a, well, whatever. We do have, if you go on WSB, there's, Gina, do you know what I'm talking about or not? Can you find it?
I did see it out, and I can forward it to everybody for the
Yeah.
webinar. Yep, I can forward it to Kelly.
Yeah.
It's just an informational webinar that you can sign up for.
Yeah.
Do some classes if you wanted for some.
Oh, I did find it, here it is. It's on like, fall advocacy online workshop.
The legislative one.
Yeah, November
November.
19th, Tuesday at 6:30, if anybody's interested. Okay, and that's all I have.
Yeah, that's today.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind, that was the one. We're not doing it.
You almost could have made it, or
Well, we
talked about board norms too long.
That was not
No.
the one I thought I had. Isn't it?
Kelly, we talked about board norms too long. You could have been there.
You saw it? I think it's on.
Tomorrow night is the
Yeah, there
legislative
is a different
video
one that I
update,
was
though.
thinking of.
No,
That's right. Whatever.
all right,
Never mind.
Donna,
Okay,
CISA 9.
CISA 9. DC Everest, I don't know if everybody, maybe Megan, you know, they're opening a Greenock Turner Community Center. And they're very excited because the whole community, much like our referendum, the whole community was together on it and worked together on it. Marathon opened a new outdoor classroom. And I haven't seen it yet, but I hope to see it shortly. CISA this year is marking the 60th anniversary of all the CISAs. And so there's going to be some kind of deal, I'm not sure that, but they just sent out the message that this year will be the 60th anniversary. And other than that, it was, the Cole Scholarship. There's changes to the Cole Scholarship this year. And so I think superintendents, administrators, I'm not sure, probably will get that information.
Yep, I believe they got rid of the student portion of it, but kept the teacher portion.
Oh, okay.
I believe, after Herb Cole
Yeah,
passed away,
they
the
didn't.
rules have changed.
They didn't specify.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't know, Tom, if you've heard it, but I think they got rid of the
That's
student
correct.
portion.
They got rid of the student and they're keeping the staff.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay. Item 15, future agenda items, board.
The only thing I have on here for future agenda items, next month, based on our stuff, will be summer school presentation, school report card presentations. I should be getting the WASB resolutions for the delegate assembly. Evaluations in closed session. We should be having our evaluations for school safety drills coming out between the three buildings. And then we should be getting our audit management letter and that kind of stuff coming out would be the big things I have on there for next month, besides the school calendar.
Very good. Kelly, are you willing and interested in being the delegate?
Did we vote on that already?
I think
No. We did?
I think so.
we usually do it during reorg.
Yeah, I
We
thought we
voted,
did
I
that.
think, yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was to be the WASB person, but
Oh.
not to be attending.
No, that's fine, I'll be there.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
She knows the nuances of it.
Apparently, yes, she does.
Getting ready for it every year.
All right,
God bless you.
the board will move into closed session, section 19.85 1C, considering